Hey there, I am D. When the word Stargate is mentioned, this is what comes to mind if you're an Arthur C. Clarke fan. But if you grew up during the 90s, you'd think of a show about a team of explorers who travel to other planets not by means of a ship, as we've seen dozens of times before, but by a sort of teleportation device. Yes, I know, it's a little more complicated than mere teleportation, but if I have to explain that, this video would be too long. What most people seem to forget, however, is that that show was based on a movie. So I'm under the impression that even self-proclaimed gators want to pretend this never happened. Why? If the movie never happened, we wouldn't have the show. You might as well wish the whole Stargate franchise never happened so we wouldn't have the animated series. Now, believe it or not, the Stargate movie was supposed to be the first in a trilogy of movies. But they soon dropped that project in favor of this movie. Still, while the filmmakers themselves didn't finish the trilogy, that didn't stop Bill McKay from writing the books. He wrote 5 books in total, not counting the novelization. And today we're gonna look at the first, Stargate Rebellion. Now, since this was written before the TV series, you might expect a few differences. Death gliders are called Udajits, staff weapons are called blast lances, we are not of the Tari, but Ombos, though strangely the name of the planet is still Abydos. Anyway, Naquadah is quartzite and O'Neill's kid is not named Charlie. Jack had fallen apart when their son, Jack Jr., died in a gun accident. Jack Jr.? I thought it was Tyler. Off to a good start already. This is supposed to tie in with the movies, but isn't very consistent with that either. Then again, his name was never actually mentioned out loud, and you need to have a clear eye for detail to notice such a thing, so it's okay, I'll let him off the hook on this one. He remembered Shaori's halting translation of one section. When those on Ombos rebelled, Hathor went forth as the Eye of Ra. No, not that Eye of Ra. You need to know a thing or two about Egyptian mythology to understand what they mean. She covered that world in blood, till, wounded, she entered the vault of Ra to sleep ever since. So in other words, Hathor will be our new antagonist. By the way, isn't that how they opened that one episode of the show? Huh. Looks like the producers read McKay's books after all.
Indeed.
Even her husband, engineer of the gods, hadn't dared reprove her for her friendship with Ra. Yes, Ra's alien Ka was doubtless responsible for having her put away. Ah yes, the alien inhabiting Ra. In the show it is said that Ra is part of a race of snakes which inhabit people and possesses them, while the movie shows just a ray of light. And this is just one of the many ways in which the show contradicts the movie. So Brad Fuller and Jonathan Glasser loved the movie, but they hated it? I don't get it. The Lances, like all the alien high technology Jack O'Neill and the survivors of the Abydos recon team had reported on, depended on that quartz-like crystal to work. And now we got to the main plot of the book. So you have Abydos, a desert planet that has this specific element that's somehow the basis for a lot of high-tech. So whoever controls the planet, and by extension the element, controls the whole world. Wait, why does that sound familiar? I can't quite put a finger on it. Probably not important. A much wider glare of Abydos' 3 suns to pour in. 3 suns? I remember there being 3 moons over Abydos, but 3 suns? 3 suns wouldn't make life on Abydos unbearable, it would make life impossible! The sinuous perfection of her body offered all the attributes one might expect of a goddess of sex and love.
Hathor was the Egyptian goddess of fertility and liberty and music. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, in a manner of speaking.
I don't think that's something to nitpick about. Hathor triggered the transformation of her biomorphic metal, the cat's head forming over her features. However, this is... Hathor has a cow's head, not a cat's? How did McKay miss out on that one? I realize a cow doesn't sound as sensual as a cat, which makes you wonder what the ancient Egyptians were thinking when they created the character. Anyway, clearly very little research was done when writing this book. Okay, you can argue that the same can be said about the movie, but the thing about the movie is that often there's very little time to either check your facts or even explain everything you see in the movie. You'd think that with a book you have a lot more time to check your facts first, and even explain away all the inaccuracies that we've seen before. I mean, it worked for The Lost World. I meant the book! And to tell you how it ends... well, it has a Back to the Future ending. Meaning that it ends with a cliffhanger forcing you to pay for the sequel. A trend that has been repeated ever since. Bottom line, is this book any good? Well, it's not the best I ever read, admittedly, but... well, let me put it this way. Earlier I mentioned how the original movie was supposed to be the first in a trilogy, but the other two never got made. As such, this book is at least interesting, in the sense that it would give you, as a gator, an idea of what might have been. And speaking of sequels that were never made, according to my resources, Dean Devlin, who produced the movie, had been working on getting the next two made anyway, and in so doing, ignored the whole TV series. Well, since he originally created the movie, I think he has every right to do so. But apparently he can't get that project off the ground, so instead he's focusing on making a sequel to Independence Day. Why? I mean, why waste all your energy on making movies of which everything is already resolved? Especially considering there's one movie they made that did end with a cliffhanger, yet they never made that sequel. Ah well, as the old saying goes, and I hope I'm using it in the right context, beggars can't be choosers. This was D, I'm signing off.
Stargate, it's a great big world with a great big swirl, and you step inside to another world. We're talking Stargate, it's a crazy trip. You can go quite far and you don't need a car or even a ship. It's getting tricky here. There's Colonel O'Neill and Carter and Daniel and Teal. Look out for that Google.